Hello everyone and welcome back to Patch Notice. As always, I'm your host, Jacky, and we're going to be kicking off 2025 with the first update this year for Deadlock. Only a minor patch though, so don't get your hopes up. Valve have only tweaked a few things inside of this patch, so let's get it started. Not to be confused with Alchemical Flask, Alchemical Fire has had some changes made to it. On screen now you can see the latest revision of the item card and what has been changed. Valve state that effectiveness reduction is now 40% versus buildings mid-boss. So I assume that means other things alongside that, being Guardians, Walkers, also of course base destroyables, should also have this applied. However, they also say that this will now affect the weapon damage bonus as well, instead of just raw DPS. So a couple changes there to Alchemical Fire to kick us off with these minor tweaks to items in the first update for 2025. Moving on from that, we can start to turn our attention onto Berserker and Frenzy. But before we get there, here's a weird bug that I've noticed with Alchemical Fire. I feel like if you look straight up in the air, the arc will indicate that it should go up and come back down, as is the law. However, it doesn't. As it hits the skybox, I presume, Alchemical Fire will detonate and then begin to spark and spread its AoE effect on the ground beneath you. You could maybe use this to trick people out by throwing it up in the air and them not expecting it to then ignite the floor beneath you. Probably a weird bug, so Valve, please fix. Anyway, onto the regularly scheduled programming, let's have a look at both Berserker and Frenzy, of course, an item that is built from Berserker. Now, Berserker's undergone some nerfs. That's going to be weapon damage per stack reduced by 1% from 6 to 5, and the bullet resistance being reduced from 9% to 8% as well. Those nerfs continue, however, on the side of things when looking at the upgraded item Frenzy. Frenzy will now have weapon damage per stack down by 1%, bullet resistance reduced from 10 to 8%, fire rate reduced from 40 to 35, and the low health bullet resistance is going to be reduced from 55 to 50. Moving on there as well, we start to have a look at Restorative Shot, another very popular early laning phase item. Cooldown on this has been upped by 2 seconds, from 7 seconds to 9 seconds. So about 2 more seconds there before you're going to get those procs to get the heal back from that buffed bullet effect of Restorative Shot. Keep that in mind when picking that bad boy up. Gameplay change here though. Now, listed in the patch notes, this says Unstoppable State no longer blocks anti-heal effects. Of course, this will affect anything that gives you Unstoppable as a status effect. The item itself, Yamato Shadow Transformation, etc, etc. Again, another thing to be aware of, you're not going to be able to block those anti-heal effects that can be applied to you when using an Unstoppable status now inside of Deadlock. So those are all the item or item adjacent based changes. Now we can have a look at the only hero changes that were shipped with this patch, and it's just purely Yamato. Of course, there's been a bit of an outcry about this. It'll be bullet damage and shadow transformation that has been tweaked here. You imagine this is probably to try to reduce some of the explosive capability of gun Yamato, with bullet damage growth being reduced from 0.33 to 0.27 on Sister's Lament, the weapon of choice for Yamato. Shadow Transformations Tier 1 has also been reduced. This is going to be a plus 20% fire rate being nerfed down to only plus 15%. So Shadow Transformation undergoing some direct and indirect nerfs inside of this patch, and you can obviously see how it will affect things here in the long run of Deadlock. People were talking about this and obviously asking for some tweaks to Yamato off the back of what has been a pretty consistent status she's been in for a while now. Obviously, we didn't see many tweaks towards her with the Christmas patch, I believe. Weird one as well, it does seem like Valve have left everything Christmassy still up. We're on about the 13th of January as of recording the voiceover for this, but Christmas is still going on in the Cursed Apple. And as for myself and Damp for Dead Air, we're back home. We were away the past few days, the HLTV Awards for Counter-Strike, of course hanging out with many friends, friend of the channel here as well, Clicks Philip, who we linked up and had many chats about Valve and Deadlock. If you want to hear those chats, head over to the Dead Air podcast. It'll be coming out weekly again soon. Don't worry, I promise. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Get back out there.